while having a terrific culinary adventure for main meals. You can buy a big plate of hot carbs for $1 in the Mercado. You just have to get off any city's beaten path, even by one block. About alcohol, there's an alcohol shock. Beer and spirits aren't as cheap as is often assumed. Figure $1.50 for a beer in a bar, $1.50 US. Bottles of alcohol are only about 10% less than they are in the US and Canada. Beer is perhaps 2/3 of the price in the US if bought in a grocery store. So be careful with your budget. Also, to figure out Mexico money, try to drop the last digit. So if you're buying something for 10 pesos, just drop the zero and it'll be $1. More or less, that's the easy conversion. It's a rough one. Using this formula is good to sum it all up, but don't use this formula for budget. It could be an easy way to guess rough costs when you're shopping, though. So these are some of my points of advice, and be careful with your budget because it might be a little expensive if you try to assume the same lifestyle you have over at home. Secret number 8. Culture is in everything. In Mexico, culture and tradition are seen as central to life and society. Mexican people are by large warm and cheerful individuals with an incredible passion for life. Provided that you are respectful of local customs, they will welcome you with open arms and show you all the best that Mexico has to offer. Exchanging proper greetings is considered very important in Mexico cultural circles. Handshakes are viewed as being the standard greeting, and before even attempting to ask a question or make a request, it is important to shake hands and exchange greetings. It's also very nice to say buenos días, buenas tardes, or buenas noches. You are also expected to address all members of a group individually. Greeting a group of people in the collective sense is viewed as being both lazy and rude. Even if your Spanish is incredibly poor, Mexicans will greatly appreciate any effort that you make to speak their language. A quick buenos días will go a long way to earn your respect in the eyes of local residents. In major towns as cities, most locals will be able to speak English very proficiently, and it is only in the more rural areas that you may encounter a few language barriers. When engaging in conversation with locals, keep your English grammatically correct and avoid using colloquial terms and idioms which are viewed as being unnecessary and impolite. This is slang. It is also considered bad-mannered to end a conversation by stating that you soon need to be somewhere else, so avoid this at all costs. A couple of other communication points to keep in mind. Mexicans are not big in personal space, so don't be surprised if locals stand somewhat closer than usually when engaging in conversation. Remember also that siesta time falls between 2 and 4 p.m. every day, so don't schedule meetings or gatherings during this time. You're not likely to get much of a response, unless you invite them for a meal. Refusing an invitation in Mexico is considered rude, so be careful, because local residents may agree to meet, and then will simply not arrive. In the case of Mexican men, they are naturally flirtatious, so if you're a woman traveling alone, expect the odd whistle and teasing comment. Accept compliments for what they are and avoid getting confrontational, as it is likely to get you nowhere. Certain bars are reserved for men only. These are called, most of the time, cantinas. Not all, but most of them in small barrios or neighborhoods, and it is best to avoid going near them at all costs for women, while in other venues it is viewed as dishonorable for women to be seen without an escort. That's Mexican culture. This may seem antiquated and chauvinistic on the surface, but it is important to remember that you are a guest in the country and therefore need to be tolerant of others' customs and beliefs. If you're traveling alone or in female company, rather stick to well-known city bars and hotel lounges. Remember at all times that family and religion are central to Mexico culture, so avoid making derogatory or critical comments about either. Now let me give you a quick overview on Mexican culture. Mexico's historical attractions, from the ancient ruins of the Olmecs, Maya, and Aztec to the train routes used by the brash and legendary Pancho Villa, are the prime reasons people travel there. The reason for this is simple. The tale of Mexico's past, accompanied by an overwhelming amount of physical remains, is as romantic, blood-curdling, dramatic, and complex as it gets. Somewhere around 1000 BC, the first of Mexico's ancient civilizations, the Olmecs, established themselves in what are now the states of Veracruz and Tabasco. Then came the Teotihuacanos, the Zapotecs, the Mixtecs of Monte Alban, the Maya of Yucatan, the Toltecs, Aztecs, and dozens of smaller city groups. To balance the spiritual and earthly realms and appease their pantheons of gods, many of these civilizations practiced human sacrifice, a fact that often overshadows their great achievements in the realms of mathematics, astronomy, architecture, textile weaving, art, and pottery. The Maya, for example, were so advanced in mathematics and astronomy that their calendar was the world's most accurate until this century. They could also predict solar and lunar eclipses. None of Mexico's pre-Columbian civilizations is more storied, however, than the Aztecs. Prior to the 15th century, the Aztecs were a marginal tribe living on the edge of Lake Texcoco, the site of present-day Mexico City. By 1473, after subjugating neighboring tribes, they ruled the largest empire Mexico had ever seen. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, set in the lake, was a picturesque city of pyramids, mile-long floating roads, aqueducts, animated marketplaces, and 100,000 residents. When the Spanish adventurer Hernán Cortés arrived in 1519, the rich city was a vision perfectly meshed to his thirst for conquest. Mexico, with its fertile plains and great mineral wealth, was the crown jewel of Spain's colonies. It was heavily taxed, ruled directly from Spain, and permitted no autonomy. The Spanish monarchs distributed land to settlers in the form of encomiendas, the predecessor to the hacienda, which were worked by Indian slaves that the settlers were charged to protect and convert to Christianity. By the 19th century, however, Mexico was ready to declare its independence from Spain. In 1810, the people of Mexico officially declared their independence in the town of Dolores. This declaration kicked off the Mexican War of Independence, which lasted for over a decade. The history of Mexico records September 16, 1810, as its Independence Day. Today, Mexican Independence Day remains one of the most